He disappeared.
Yep. Oops.
Okay, looks like we are streaming to YouTube now.
We are.
Cool.
There
All
we
right.
go.
Are we ready to kick off, Blair?
We are. Now we are officially ready to go.
All right. Okay, welcome to the 300. What?
Nope.
What?
Sorry. We have Jeremy joining us too. Just sorry.
Okay. All right.
There we go.
You let me know when you're ready, Blair.
Yes, I am now. Sorry, I'm just back. I did all that other stuff and then I had an admit, and
I was
now we're
going to
good.
say Shannon and Christine are going to be a little late. So
Okay.
Right.
welcome,
Okay.
Jeremy. It's good to see you.
Yes.
Hello, thank you.
So shall we try again? Start again?
And be happy to. All right, you guys.
Okay.
Welcome to the 324th let me start one more time.
Third time's
time's
a
a
charm.
charm.
Third time.
Welcome to the 321st episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, where we discuss mind models. Mind models are a collection of extensively tested thought frameworks, skills, and behaviors that enable people to transform their lives intentionally. They've been tested and proven to be 80% effective when applied consistently versus mindset, which is only 1% effective. Your host for this evening is Blair Dunkley, the creator of Mind Models, and the BDE is Blair's free gift to you. We are Tim and Becky Graff, your co-hosts and certified mind model coaches, along with Patty McClurg as well. Mind models for us have helped us in every area of our life, not only in business, but personally resolving an 8-year issue in our marriage within a couple of hours, to the navigation of grief and PTSD from the tragic accident in 2020, where we lost both of our young daughters. Mind models have allowed us to be more effective and increase our capacities and speed of recovery without traditional counseling. We welcome you tonight and look forward to getting to know you better. Again, thank you everybody who's showing up with us here live. And if you're on YouTube, welcome as well. Please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Again, BDE is on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. It is Blair's free gift to use to learn how to think and utilize mind models in your life. Also, he has a really cool opportunity for you guys. If you want more in-depth training, a kind of a study guide, he has that available for you guys to get more in-depth framework of what we're talking about with each episode. You're going to be able to get past stuff as well as up to date as we move forward. So if you want information on that, Colin's already got it. He's popped it in the chat here, where you can go click on that link and register. $25 a month or $300 a year. Definitely worth it to get those so that you can have a deeper understanding of what mind models can do for you. And again, welcome to tonight. Blair, I think you had something that you wanted to share as far as an interview that you did. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, I've done a few lately, and it's been amazing what we've been able to start accomplishing with getting mind models out there. So basically, we're looking at transforming people's lives and getting people to the point of being able to recognize very specific behaviors. And one of the key ones is around question concepts all the time, which is what everything is about. Now, were you one of my most recent I guess podcasts was called Transforming Tragedy into Triumph with Blair Dunkley. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. Is that it? Okay, great.
Yep.
So, okay. That one was actually really effective. We put the link on there for you to go watch it. And it was interesting. Ray Z, anyway, the guy that did the interview did a really good job, interviewed me. Well, we ran the podcast together. It wound up being highly effective. And so that one in particular leveraged a lot of different mind models. So if you're looking at finding out how to apply the mind models that we talk and how that it works in real life, and in some cases even where the mind models came from, because I gave a bit of the background story of that. That's all on that podcast, and how I used mind models to transform my life, like Becky and Tim did with theirs, so that I could survive and cope with the tragic. It wasn't exactly loss of my father. My father went into a 14-year coma, and that's shared in there. So take a look at what's there. If you'd like, feel free to share it with others. It's a rather effective podcast, I believe. Anyway, like and comment, share. That's always huge. And tonight we're going to be going into a few other things, but before I do that, I want to throw it back to Patty and let her do leftovers or whatever with the series. Take it away, Patty.
Okay, thank you.
Watching
We're
up.
doing a series on guiding principles for effective communication. And Colin, if you could put in there they go. You are so fast. These are the links to the past episodes if you want to be catching up with the things that we've done. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on what and how, not why. So these are part of the question concepts that Blair talked about. Before we move forward, I just want to see, does anybody have any leftovers on material from the previous episodes that you want to question or ask or comment on? Going once, going twice. Okay, new content. So definitions. Blair's question concepts are very, very specific. So we think we know what the words mean, but we want to use them within a mind model context. So I'm going to give you some definitions. One is what. A what question generates a list of one or more things or events. It's present-based. It brings focus to facts.
Yeah,
How
I
is
wanted to, can
Sure.
I jump in here for a second,
Sure.
Patty?
Mhm.
You know what? I know it said definitions, and I never caught it when we were putting our notes together, but technically these aren't definitions. Technically,
I was
these are,
thinking within the mind model context, they are the way
yeah,
we
I
use.
know. I know. So I was thinking that as well, but I was sort of flipping things around and going in my head, even
Okay,
in the
what
mind
would you
model
like to call
context
them?
of these. Well, again, they are the functions of the question concepts
Okay,
themselves.
functions.
Yeah, these
I
are the
like that
functions.
word.
And it's sort of like what they do, how they function as a concept. So just thought it might be more effective rather than calling them definitions.
I do think that's more effective. It's much clearer to think of them
Mhm.
functionally than it is to think of them as a definition. So thanks for
Yeah,
popping
because
in there with that.
I actually, back in the day when I was trying to figure out question concepts, I looked up the definitions and I go, I don't even know if that's exactly what the question concepts, well, what the word what does
Mm-hmm.
and whatever, but it didn't give me a function. It gave me a definition of a word, not a function of a word.
Sort of
And
like Pirates of the Caribbean, what a ship is and what it, all of that. So it's
yeah,
more than a sail and a boat and this and that.
yeah,
Um,
The interesting
so
thing as well, Patty,
yeah,
and one of the things, and maybe Blair, you can correct if I'm tracking off, but when you think about, and as we get into this, the what's and the hows, um, the definitions and stuff, or the what of the word, when you talk about the function of it, the actual how of it, and how it works in language, how behaviorally the word, how we behave to the word, that is the how of it, the function of it. And when you're talking about
yes,
mind models and them being behavioral skill sets, it is
yes,
the how of the mind model, the how of what the word does, not just what it is.
yeah. And the drivers, like the functions are also like that was one of the early words. I thought it was a driver, but it's more of a function. But if you think of it, like what does a what do? Like it's yeah, what does a what do? What does a what question do? Because a what question will always generate a list of one or more things or events 100% of the time, no exceptions. I mean, and when I started recognizing, and this took me months, guys, like actually 6.5 years to figure this stuff out accurately. And I kept on testing and testing and testing. And finally, it came down to I had long paragraph forms of all of this stuff and got it down to, distilled it down to, it generates a list of one or more things or events. And that's all it does. You know, it's predominantly present tense, but not always present tense. What can be past, it can be future, but it's predominantly present tense. And, you know, the result of this stuff is it tends to bring focus to facts, to information. Okay. Sorry, I'm sort of hijacked this. Did you want me to continue on, Patty?
You
With
are
the-
very welcome to
Okay.
continue on. You're doing great. It's like you
Thank you,
really
because
know this.
I just realized that like the definitions of things was like I'd rather take it
Oh,
back.
I
to the-
appreciate the fact that that really wasn't an accurate name and label for
Yeah.
what we were doing. And
Yeah.
we behaved to the meanings of words. So it
Mm.
was a very appropriate interruption. I
Yeah.
value looking at it functionally as opposed to as definition. And Tim,
Right.
what you brought into that discussion with relationship to the hows with this, again, really valuable point of view. So Blair, if you want to continue, go for it.
Okay. So the how of things, like when I started recognizing how things happen and what a what is a list of one or more things or events. And then I realized if I take like this simple pen and I throw it up and catch it, how did I do that? Well, when you write out all the hows of that, or what you think are hows, it actually turns into a list of one or more things or events. It's this. How did I do this? Well, I dropped it. So how did I do this? I caught it. Like tracking it with your eye, doing everything. Like it, okay, I threw it up in the air. So throw it up in the air. That's the first point. Second point is I tracked it. Third point is I caught it. But every time I'm creating a list of one or more things or events, whichever way you describe that how, it turns back into what's. Until you think of this as, how did I do that? I did it. And if you go, basically, you did it like this. How did you do it? And you throw something up in the air and you catch it and you tell me like this. That's the how. That subtle discernment. By the way, what's and hows were the place where I started recognizing that all question concepts can be disguised as all other question concepts. In other, the words who, what, where, when, why, or how can be utilized to project functions of all the other question concepts, which means a lot because it means that the concept of the question that you're using is more important than the word. Okay. So how do you get a lot of people pissed off when you go, what did you do that for? And if I just say, what did you do that for? And I ask you, which question concept did I actually use? What did you do that for? Is that a who, what, when, where, why, or how? Leslie, best guess. What did you do that for?
It's a disguised why.
Correct. How do you know? Like, how does it, how do you get to figure out that that's a disguised why? Like, how do you
Because
know?
because of the tonality.
Correct. And What else?
There's aggression.
There is. So tonality, aggression. But what did it do to you? What did you do that for, Leslie?
Well, it puts you
What
in,
did it
puts you in a
generate?
defensive.
Bingo, exactly. It loaded the emotion first. And that's what whys do. Whys create reasons, excuses, rationalizations, and justifications 100% of the time. Okay? It's 100% past based. 100% of the time, it's always past. It cannot, a why cannot be present. Even if you say, why did you do that? You will answer that question as though you will go back in your life and project that you did such, and you will answer it as though you're reflecting on the past, on what you did. And you will describe that way 100% of the time. I've tried this for like 20, well, now 48 years of doing this stuff, and nobody's been able to break that, including some very, very smart men. They just go, yeah, it is 100% past. Yet psychology doesn't tend to acknowledge that. You know, it tends to just go, no, that's just a why. It takes the word as the definition, not as a function, and definitely not as a concept. And it doesn't worry about how these words, well, all of the question concepts, actually form the fundamentals of how we think. Because every utterance out of your mouth is filtered through one of these who, what, where, when, why, and how, one of these 6 question concepts. Every utterance, even statements, even what I'm saying right now can be, okay, I'm making these statements, but how am I making these statements actually is I'm creating lists of what's right now that are present-based, predominantly present-based information going forward, just creating lists of one or more things or events. And nobody in the history of the world has figured this out before. So I was the first one to do this. It took me 6.5 years of research at the college to do this, something that I thought would take me maybe 3 to 6 months. 6.5 years later, I figured it out. But the 3 question concepts that are so critical for life are what, how, and why. And why, the reasons, excuses, rationalizations, and justifications, loads emotions, bigger emotions than information, and predominantly it's first, as it were. It's sort of like we say loads emotion first, well, it loads it bigger because you have to plow through the emotion of it before you get to the information. But there is information in there too. Now, how's just to make sure that you understand the how. Specifically, how is always an action. And when can actions happen? Jeremy, when can an action happen? Past, present, or future?
Present.
Correct. Does change require action?
I would say so.
Yeah. And if change requires action, when does change happen? Past, present, or future?
Present.
Can it be changed? Can you make change in the future?
No.
But you can plan for it now, but you cannot make the change happen until that future moment comes. That's the critical path to how works. how must be present. And it must be present 100% of the time until we get time machines or we go into space and go super fast. And then we get time dilation and all of this other thing. And presence sort of shifts around. And that's a dog's breakfast that I don't need to deal with, because most of us, most of the time, don't deal with that kind of stuff, Jeremy.
I just want to know when we talked about dog's breakfast.
Oh, sorry.
Never heard that phrase before.
Oh, really? It's up here in Canada. Yeah, it's a Canadian idiom. So there you go. In other words, it's a messy thing. Not very nice to look at. Okay, so with that,
Okay, well, with that, I'd like to toss it to Tim. We're looking at what kind of responses do we get from when we ask a why question. Blair asked one of Leslie, and Leslie came up with a response of being self-defensive, feeling like he was on the defense. So with framing an experience and changing a why to a what, Tim, you have some wonderful experience with that. This gets back into what we used to call Tim's mini stack.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, would you share with people how you do that? What is your process?
So I'm one of the things that I've figured out, and it works very well for myself, and it may work for you. And the interesting thing about the mind models is just taking any single one of these mind models and asking yourself a question around the mind models, like effective versus ineffective. Just simply ask yourself, is this effective or ineffective? And just by simply asking that question, you've already started the process, as Blair mentioned before, of a list, and you've already moved yourself from that emotion center into the what's by making a list. And just shifting gears in your brain in questioning moves you from that emotional state of the why into the prefrontal cortex, where you're actually moving into the information. So that's just an example. And any one of the mind models, if you just ask yourself a question around those, no matter which mini stack you may work well for you, or and we've talked about some of the mini stacks and some of the mind model that work together in past episodes. But
can I just give them a reference point? A mini
yes,
stack
please.
for anybody who's new or doesn't know this might be a thing called the 3 E's is a mini stack. It's effective versus ineffective is the first mind model. Then the second one that you go through is effective versus ineffective. And then the third mind model would be evaluation versus judgment. And we want to utilize the 3 E's, the 3 ones that are starting each of those. And those are the mind models that work effectively together.
Yep. And one of the other mind models that I wanted to talk about is self-situation other. This is another of the stacks of mind models. I lovingly call it my mini stack, because I use control versus influence, self-situation other, and then let's see, I get this one. People, help me with this one, Blair.
Situation, people, process.
Thank you, Patty. Situation, people, process. I get tongue-tied after situation, other situation. Anyway, I get them backwards. I twist them. But one of the first things that I go to is control versus influence. Anytime I'm in a situation or I come up with something and I'm going into a wide place, or I'm uncomfortable or anything like that, one of the first questions that I ask myself is in reference to control versus influence. What do I actually have control of in this conversation with somebody else? What do I have control of in this situation? And what am I influencing? That's one of the very first questions that I ask myself. And that right there starts that list of what I can control is myself. Can't control the others involved, can't control the situation. Those kinds of things come into my head. And it comes really quick. And with that comes obviously self, situation, and other. What are others' roles in this? What is the situation? is, this situation, what is my part in this situation and what can I control in that?
May
Well,
I interrupt for just a quick moment, Tim? Just to add a little bit of clarity, Colin put up a link to a Venn diagram. But if you look at self-situation other as a Venn diagram with 3 circles, okay, we're looking at how do those things overlap and where is the sweet spot.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if we can get the actual diagram in the chat for people to look at, but that link will take you to that diagram so that you can look at that. But when he's talking about self-situation other, he's talking about this diagram where self will influence other and influence situation, but self cannot control other and cannot control situation. There it is. Thank
yeah,
you.
there we go.
There it is. So we're looking at this, the intention is to get as close to that sweet spot where all 3 are overlapping. So forgive the interruption, Tim. I just wanted to help people get a little better picture for what you were talking about.
No, not at all. Thank you. And in fact, yeah, I forgot we had that picture. But yeah, when you think about it and for those of you that may not be able to see the picture, where basically you have a circle where it is yourself, and then you have others, and you have situations, and each one of these circles are their own. You have the others involved, you have the situation itself, and then you have yourself. And the only thing with control versus influence, the only thing that we can actually control is ourself. We can only control that one circle. Within others and situation, we can influence. And so that's where in this diagram, the circles start to overlap each other. And as Patty mentioned, right in the center of those 3 overlapping, we have what we call the sweet spot. And that is where all things are working together in harmony. The others in whatever the situation is, and yourself are all influencing and doing what they can control in that given situation, the others and self.
So
It's where
Tim, how do you shift? How does that diagram impact shifting from a why to a what? How do you use that diagram to do that?
once I start asking myself the questions of what can I control? What is the situation? Who are the other involved? How can I influence this? It moves it moves me from that emotional part of my brain from, if I'm having a heated conversation with somebody and I ask myself, okay, what in this can I control? I can control myself. I cannot control the other and how upset they get. What I can do is influence and start. So at that point, I can ask myself, okay, how might I influence to bring this conversation down, to, attempt to bring peace? If it's a situation, I ask myself, okay, what do I have control of within this situation? What is outside of my control? And then what do I want to do with that? So just by asking yourself what you can control, what your role is within self situation and other, and the influence of it, you're making that list of what's, which actually will bring you from that emotional center into the information. And then you actually, once you've established what you have control over and what your role is, that what you can influence, you can actually you move into the how of it. You can start making a process and a flow moving forward. That's
Interesting.
how that mini stack has worked for me.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Shannon, are you able to participate at all?
Yes. Hold on. Okay. There we go.
Okay. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to share? You had an interesting why moment with yourself
I
today.
did. Can I go get
Could
the thing
you-
I wrote it down on? Give me 2 seconds.
Okay. She had an interesting experience with why involving her own self. So instead of influencing someone else out of a why or shifting a conversation, as Tim was explaining, she had an experience of shifting herself out of a why. So could you share that with us, Shannon?
Yes, it was there's a certain amount of it when the body sensations kick in and it's really intense. Like there's a certain situations, like if it's a minor, and I feel like there are grades of intensity. And when it's a minor irritation, I can use the 3 E's and pivot away and it's all good and everything. But like when something happens that sends you up here and your heart is pounding and you are like, literally, you know what happened back then in the past is about to happen again. And you feel like throwing up and dying. And that feeling, like I could tell, like I had a little conversation on this side. You're like, past is not an accurate predictor of the future. And I'm like, but I'm about to die. And you're going back and forth because you know things, but you still feel horrible. And so I was having this moment and I was like, the only way to prove myself wrong, this side of myself, the only way to prove myself wrong is to go forward. You cannot stay in that feeling and in that space and expect it to go away. And so I was like, okay, there is the tiny little part of me that's like, I do know the past is not an accurate predictor of the future, no matter how terrible I feel and how horrible my heart is pounding right now. And trying to school my tone of voice, quiet myself down and use the things I know, but really going forward and trying as much as I could to kind of erase the whiteboard and make my mind as neutral and normal as possible and go into the uncomfortable situation in order to prove myself wrong. And it turned out great. Like 5 seconds into the conversation, I realized that the horrible thing I felt like was about to happen that was very triggering and inflammatory was not at all about to happen. And so there's that little moment where you feel incredibly stuck and like there are no choices. And it was just it was a really great reminder to me that even if I have all of the body, because it can feel like I failed sometimes when I feel that triggered and that inflamed, because I know better. Like I feel like I should know better. And it really just being able to say, okay, let's just see what happens. Like, can I crack the door of curiosity open a tiny little bit, step forward and make a choice?
Yep.
Neutral, positive tone of voice, neutral, positive body language, have the conversation, do the things that are uncomfortable. And that is the only way to prove yourself wrong. And then in my mind, I was like, and if I happen to be right, because it happens sometimes, but if I happen to be right, I actually have the skills to deal with it. Like it would really suck. But, to be able to like picture both halves of it and to step forward and like actively take a behavior and take a chance and see if I can prove my whole entire freaking out body wrong. So I did that
And when
today.
you do, like it's a huge change, isn't it? Like it's
Oh,
like
instantaneous.
relief.
It
Yeah.
really, yeah.
I mean, I wasn't going to bring this up. Now I'm going to, because I had that experience today. Okay.
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I did. I I mean, I've written books, but I hate writing, and writing proposals is like horrible for me. And I just hate that. And anyway, I had a meeting yesterday with a prospect, and fortunately, I recorded it all. And I had two events happen simultaneously. One with the new prospect, new possible client, and the other one with marketing and getting my marketing stuff out there and needing to do things. I am a verbal processor. I need to talk to people to process effectively, like really well.
Mhm.
And so I was trying to talk to myself, and you know what? It's like banging your head up against a brick wall. Like it just gets bloody. And like I cannot seem to make a shift happen in me. And I go, who can I talk to? Like, and then I go, Dr. K. Dr. Kayvon is a person that I know who's in my morning group, who's part of the collaborative coaching group that we we hold ourselves, the accountable coaches group, should say, that we hold each other accountable to do different things. And so there's about 5 to 8 of us in that group. 5 show up, 4 to 5 of us show up very consistently, and Kayvon was there. Anyway, so I decided I'd call him up and talk to him about the marketing issue, because he's very good at marketing. I did share with him the other issue that I had, and I was planning on using AI. And I hadn't done it because my body just feels like it's in molasses when I'm trying to move forward with writing this thing down and getting it done and moving it forward. And I needed to figure out at least a prompt. And so I had I have Fathom up and going, and I'd purchased Fathom. So now I have the minimum $15 a month Fathom thing. That Fathom, you can ask Fathom. So I asked Fathom to come up with this thing, and it came up with a 3-paragraph proposal. And I go, I can't send that to them. This is like a 6-figure contract. I can't give them this with three freaking paragraphs. It just doesn't cut it. Accurate, but it just doesn't cut it. But I had all of the the transcripts from the entire meeting that was there discussing what it was. So what I wound up doing was eventually working for probably, it's like I just work in molasses sometimes, but I love AI. I used to have, like, when I was married, my my then wife was Melissa, and she would throw some mud up against the wall, and my daughter Catherine was there, and the 3 of us would bash things around, or at least the 2 of us. But I always had somebody to go over this stuff with, and I was just walking around here like my feet were in molasses. Anyway, long story short here is I eventually got down a prompt, and it was, first things first, it was too long. Too accurate, too whatever. So I had to throw that one out and come up with I came up with a relatively short prompt and put in all of the context of what it was, the transcript, and asked it to come up. And it came up with a 3-page proposal. It's got some fixing that I needed to do with it, but man, that was good quality mud, really good quality mud. It got the nuts and bolts down, which I just felt relieved around, like whatever. And that whole thing of, why can't I do this? Why can't, like, all the whys that are crawling around in my brain, and I'm feeling stuck as a result of that. I'm loading up all of this emotion and feeling all bogged down, and I'm just judging the heck out of myself. It is so exhausting.
Blair, may I ask
Yeah.
you a question?
Please.
What I'm hearing in what you actually did today is a version of the what we call the IBR,
Yes, it is.
intention behavior evaluation result,
Yep.
and that testing to get data to evaluate and putting yourself into control.
Yep.
So you have a concept, incremental failure, catastrophic failure, testing,
Yes.
to this failure concept. Could you expand on that a little bit, please?
Absolutely. It's what I live today. It's like all of this stuff. And anyway, Dr. K shared with me in his story how he lost the opportunity to get a corporate contract because he didn't actually deliver a proposal, which I unfortunately have done previously in my career as well. But today is not the case. Moving into managing my scenario and knowing that I have to do this,
I'm
I
going to
have,
stop you right there, Blair.
yes,
I'm going to interrupt you right there. Just the concept you have to do this.
yes.
Did you really have to do this? Or did you choose to do this?
At the moment, I
Okay, I'm
needed,
serious because
yeah, no,
have
no,
to
I
puts
get
a
it.
lot
I
of
get it.
pressure on you.
Yes,
Called
I
out.
did. And the problem here is being stuck in my why. I needed the pressure to get curious. Otherwise, I'd run away.
So you chose to apply pressure?
Yes.
So you chose to apply pressure because that was effective for you.
Yeah. It has
Did
been
you
in the
have
past.
to?
That's right. And that's what I tell myself. I have to do this. And I give myself, like, I go get up, I go do something. When that task is done, I have to do this much of whatever it is, just this much. Like, like it's 15 minutes, it's 20 minutes, it's 3 lines in a prompt. Write them down and then walk away.
So that's your intention.
Very intentional, like it's my intention and my first behavior.
Which you
Because if
then
I have
evaluate.
my desired result is get a proposal. My first one, which was the one with Fathom AI and Ask Fathom, and so I did it. I went through that thing, and that took me, believe it or not, for a simple little thing like that, it took me an hour and a half to staring at my keyboard to be able to figure out, and I feel quite literally incompetent. So I'm dyslexic, and my emotion of when I was younger and not very competent would come screaming through. And
So
so
Blair, where are you with that right now?
actually on the other side of it. What I was doing is very close to reliving it right now.
Yeah.
As opposed to remembering it. But I did a very good job. Now I'm into remembering. I did a very good job moving it through, but it took me an hour and a half to get
Okay.
me through to that.
Okay.
The next one was reading it over, which took me about 20 minutes. And then I realized that was not garbage, but not functionally useful. And fortunately, I had my call then with Dr. K, and he said, he'd be using ChatGPT, which I have at my disposal, and thinking about how to do that and going over with him, because that process I do very well. I'm highly effective with that. Tim, what are you, what is this?
I was chuckling about the chat for one, but I do I'm gonna put my wife under the bus. I actually love this conversation because it's very similar, and actually I heard this in Shannon's process, what you're talking about, Blair. And then my wife does the same thing, and she put in the comment that she resonates with this process of telling because she has something very similar that I think you ought to share. Do you mind?
Which thing? Which
Is
historical?
this a personal ask versus tell?
Yeah,
Mine.
really.
I'm feeling voluntold again.
Yeah.
No, very much like resistance points. When I notice that I'm significantly resisting something and it doesn't really matter the situation or others that are involved, right?
Yeah.
I'm feeling resistance. And so there has been more than one time where I have applied Blair's process of you got to get this done. You need to do this, right? RFN, putting pressure and telling myself what I need to do to get over the cusp into action. Because
Yeah.
if I relax, if I allow myself to choose, and this is ebb and flow, you guys, because sometimes I need to relax into I get to choose this and give myself some grace versus if I'm attempting to push through something, I need to come from a perspective of telling myself what I need to do so that I have enough pressure and enough rocket behind me to get into the thing so that then I can experience and process and evaluate. So there is that sliding ebb and flow between how I manage myself depending on the situation or others and what my intention back to IBER, what my intention for this thing is.
IBER stands for IBER.
Yeah,
Just
sorry.
to-
Intention,
Attention,
behavior.
behavior, evaluate results.
Yeah.
So when I'm chasing triggers, I have a very specific result. I want to test to see how far my capacity, like where's my edge in this? What can I handle? So that's the result that I'm wanting is to find out that information. My intention is to push myself
Mhm.
in a specific area. So to behave, to be able to evaluate, that's where that language sometimes needs to come in because I don't want to do it.
So what I'm hearing is, and in my example earlier, I was, from that why to a what. Basically start asking myself the questions of what do I have control? What can I do? Da 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 da. What I'm hearing with Shannon's example and with what Blair shared and Becky is almost, and maybe I'm off here, but I'm hearing more of a why move to a how.
Why, what, how?
Exactly. And
Mhm.
that,
The
but
why to a how and
pressurized
then the testing.
with a what? Pressurized with a what?
So
Yes.
I was gonna
Get
say,
at, like,
listening
it's
to both of
why.
you,
Sorry, go ahead, Shannon.
listening to both of you talk, that little have to, there's something I feel like for me that's embedded in my core values, like who I am
Yep.
as a person. And that's the have to in the moments, like there are moments where like what you're describing, Becky, that's that sliding where there is the moment for grace, but there are certain things in certain contexts. And so I feel like underneath the why to a how, what you're saying, Tim, for me, my core values are always my what, and they're always in me. So it's like this foundation, this list of
Yeah.
what things that I do have to do because they're a part of me. And that is what pushes me from the why to the how. If it's
Yeah.
one of those issues,
Yeah.
that's how I like when you're all saying that. Because at first I was like, choice, but then I'm like, no, there are certain things that are a part of me that I do have to do. So
That's
it was
right.
like really fun to watch you both like put it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And
Well said. Thank you for that summary, Shannon. That was really well
that was
said.
really well done.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, how are you experiencing this? I'm seeing some head nods and that kind of thing. Jeremy, how are you experiencing this? What are you getting from this conversation?
Interesting, you should ask. So I've been doing this work called authentic relating. It's also known as circling. And it's really about meeting people where they are. And some people call it relational yoga. And I did a session of that right before I came in here. And to me, it's about getting out of the head. And I came in here and I was just like, Blair talked about banging his head against the wall. And I just felt like, oh, I got to cram all this stuff in my head to try to keep up with all you guys being in your fucking heads. And I was just angry. And I'm like, I signed up to be here. I'm going to do my best. But then I was like allowing myself to be distracted, which is what happens when I'm not really fully invested in something. And I was trying to pay attention. And I was aware of the fact that 4 weeks in, I still don't have any grasp on any of this stuff, except for the fact that I've been in Colin's world for a couple, 3-4 months where we've been talking about it. So I have a basis of reference. I know Iber, when you say it, it's not in my bones or my blood at all whatsoever, but I know the how question. So the point is that like, I'm not gonna, as the kids say, dip out and leave the call before the call ends, but I can't really even like muster the energy to like focus on what you're saying. However, when Blair was talking about his conundrum that we just kind of the last 15 minutes were devoted to, I started to dial into Blair a little bit more. Instead of him being this guru that we're all gathering around, like I started to see him as a human being, not for the first time, but one of the more specific times, because not that he's not entirely humble and heartfelt and self-effacing and funny and lovable. Of course, he certainly is, and that's been my experience too. But I was just starting to try to figure out, okay, how do I find a line in here? And should I actually just say that, like, I'm not getting any of this and I really want some attention, but like, I didn't want to do that because I don't want to grasp the attention of the whole group because this isn't what we're here for, But the reason why I told you all this is because one of the major elements of my experience with relational yoga or circling or authentic relating that I really love is that people will actually say, Jeremy, I'm really interested to know how you're thinking or what you're feeling or how it is to be you right now. So the very nature of your question was like all the energies of the universe converged upon me at the same time and brought me to this very moment in the best way for me I could imagine, because it wasn't like I have to conform to everything that's going on here that I don't even understand. And I'm grateful to happy to be able to say so, because I would have been otherwise frustrated trying to cram my brain into a place that I don't have a very strong hold on. So yeah, so I was able to release a lot of energy by explaining that all. So thank you for asking.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, really.
I appreciate you coming to experience the Blair Dunkley experience. It's not about cramming a lot of stuff in your head as much as it's about experiencing the processes that Blair has put names and labels to, and some of them will work for you and some of them will not be your, favorite go-to things. But everything with mind models is process based, and you have your own process, and we respect that. So thank you for joining us.
I was going to say, and if I may share real quick, Jeremy, I love listening to you talk. The way you process through things and you talk through it, I hear so much of the mind models in your language and the way you process through things, and as examples of it. Just maybe not be the names and labels that Blair has put on them as, some of these concepts and some of these mind models and stuff, but that process is very much there in a lot of your language pattern. And I think that's really neat. So just share.
Thank you. I appreciate
I-
that reflection. And
I
thank you,
concur
Patty.
with that, like a ton, because I sort of sit back and I go, oh, right, naming and labeling. He's just not naming and labeling, but he's got describing feelings down to a T. Like, oh my gosh, I wish everybody had it that well. He's got process versus content. He knows how to process stuff. And he knows the difference between, and that's another mind model, process versus content. And you've got that, you've got lots of them in here, effective versus ineffective. You've got that wasn't effective, that was ineffective, this is effective. Like, and you're just going through over and over again, mind model after mind model. It's just, okay, so you don't have the names. I don't care. Are they effective for you? They seem to be. And Patty used the language to go, hey, invite you in to share where you're at. Because you get to own where you're at, and it's okay. Even if it's contrary to what we think, what we're talking about, if that's you and you're owning it, like that's cool to me. That's highly effective. So
I just had an idea. I don't know if it's part of your community or not, but I'm just going to ask if anybody would like to spend some period of time to your decision, whether that's 15 or 20 or whatever, on a Zoom or a phone call over the course of time between this and the next call, so that I might try to lock in on some of this. I would really appreciate that.
anybody willing to volunteer?
I was going to say I'm happy to spend that time with you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I was gonna
Colin
say,
has my contact information. So is it okay to get that from him and then we can schedule a Zoom call?
And
Perfect. Thank
then
you.
Becky, I think Becky just volunteered as well.
I was gonna say, so you have options, Jeremy. If Patty's great, or if you'd like to chat with Tim or I, that works as well. Colin has all of our contact information.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Thank you. Just
And
in
that
full
works.
disclosure, I'll probably take you all, anybody who's willing. So I just want to get to a place where like I can create connection and community, because that's how, Blair, I think I heard you say this, but to me, like learning through other people, like talking about a subject with another person and having connection around a concept is my learning. Like, people talk about love
Absolutely.
language. I would say that's my learning language.
Cool. I love it.
Thank
So,
you all
yeah.
for this time. Sorry to
Very,
interrupt.
very
Blair.
welcome. Cool.
Okay. So Christine, what are you hearing in all of this?
Hey, everyone, good to see everybody. I'm just getting back into all this. So life has been a very fascinating journey for me the last few months. I mean, and Patty and I had a conversation this week, and you were talking about feelings, and it's been something that I've been trying to figure out with respect to myself in terms of naming and labeling feelings, because I suck at it. And it's because I don't have this thing called alexithymia, and I don't feel feelings. I have like 3 or 4 big, massive buckets of feelings, but that's all I have. I don't have a well to go into to intellectually. I know what a feeling is supposed to be, but in terms of feeling it like internally, I have no idea what that looks like. And so it's been something I've been trying to explore in terms of naming and labeling and what it means for me in the work I do, because I'm very big on trying to get my counterparts to, communicate what they're feeling about things. I talk a lot about feelings, but I'm not so great at understanding even how I'm feeling outside those big buckets. So with only those big buckets, I don't have nuances to feelings. So they always feel very extreme. They just feel very extreme and kind of all in. And so the naming and labeling is something that I'm having to revisit. Overall, kind of bringing back to the first part, the question concepts are one of my most widely used. I mean, I've used them forever as a negotiator, and they are literally one of the most important tools that I've always had. And part of the amazing thing for me about working with Blair and getting to know all of you is having words to actually describe what was intuitive to me in my work and as I was kind of building my career. And the whole concept around why, I used to say all the time that why is the stupidest question on the planet? Because in negotiation, if somebody says why, I'm just going to respond because. That's it. That's all you're going to get from me. I don't need to expand on it. You haven't asked me a question that has any action to it. There's really nothing, there's no place else because. I don't know why, because, right? And so being able to think about the question concepts in a way that moves away from why, encourages my counterparts to move away from why, and focuses on what and how questions when I'm wanting something to be open, but then on what and when questions when I want to close people down, and I want a decision to be made. And so I love all of that concept. I love the mind models and I love the work here. And I'm really glad to be able to be back into more of the work here. So
Yeah,
Thank you.
we're thrilled to have you. So Jeremy,
Always a pleasure to see
Yeah.
you here. Brent, what are you taking from this? Or are you still visions of up north with your book?
Yeah, I could tell you that transition is difficult, with your mentality is somewhere else and then traveling at the same time. And then that makes it difficult for focus. When you're doing something and then all of a sudden switch right away, it makes it difficult.
Oh,
But
what might you do about that, Brent?
Self-situation, other Brent.
Yeah. Um, no, I get like when Jeremy said earlier, sometimes I get the feeling of, man, I just don't know if I'm really feeling like going on and participating. but I do because I know that's going to benefit me. It's going to get me to thinking. And if I don't, I get put into a state where I just forget or don't bother doing it. I don't want to get to that habit. I want to stay with this habit. It's very effective for me. So I work to be very consistent on that. On that front. No,
And
but the what's and the what's and the why, like but the action of getting from the why to the what's is what Tim and Blair were showing, and Shannon very effectively demonstrating that process.
Mm.
But
Brent, may I ask you a
yeah,
question?
yeah, go right ahead.
Could you take what you experience, because you said that there are times when you don't really feel like getting on to the
Mhm.
BDE here. Could you take your experience and put it into the success formula? The success formula, Jeremy, is a mind model that is defined as who, what, how. So the who is usually you, and the what is what happened, it's historical. And then what might you do about that? And then the how is the actual doing of the thing. So, Brent, could
Let's
you
see.
success formula yourself
Yeah.
through attending the BDE? You've been so consistent, the longest member here.
Yeah.
So,
I would say the who is me, myself, and the what, historical what, would be the let's say the results of what I get from participating and not participating. Use the two comparative, the two, and then what what I get from that's more effective, that's worked. I want to continue that, so I will go ahead and come on and participate. So going from that, that would be the success formula there.
Yep. The second what, just Jeremy, if you're writing this down, see you sort of focusing there. The second what is an action plan.
Mhm.
So who, what, how. So anyway.
My Jeremy's comment. Did I hear Patty say bucks in relation to Brent's world?
yes,
fun.
he just got his deer this past
Yeah.
weekend.
Well, this year I didn't actually get a buck. I got a doe this year.
Oh, you
So,
had a doe permit. You got a
yeah.
doe.
Well, I got early like archery season.
Okay.
So you transition, and I didn't have where we're at. We have to have access like a special permit like during rifle, so you have to apply for it. But I didn't get one this year. So yeah. Yep.
In Michigan, there's a Jeff Daniels made a movie years ago,
Hi, Escanaba in the
Escanaba
Moonlight.
into Moonlight. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it. It's
I've
just
seen it.
it's a little cult classic because he plays Debuckless Youper and being the only man in the UP who hasn't gotten his buck. And so it's over years. And what's it been? You said 7 years since you've gotten your
Yeah.
deer. So
Mm.
just celebrating that with Brent is all.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because I see doe all the time. It's just I don't, this year is actually taking the opportunity to get one, and then, but yeah, I didn't see any bucks at all the time I was
Yeah.
there. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Leslie, how are you doing with all of this? What are you getting out of this?
I'm getting a lot. Um, it's I've enjoyed the interaction. Jeremy, I empathize with not knowing because what's going on. It took me a few months to get tied onto the language of what's happening here. And even then, like just now, this success model, who, what, how, this is a new mind model. It may have been mentioned in the last year and a bit, but I don't remember it if it did come out. And my book is getting full. It's of notes. So it's a constant learning process, and that's what I appreciated. Brent, I didn't feel like coming on tonight either. It's not the best of days in terms of success, but I figured this is always such a good environment. I cannot not be here.
Good.
So, yeah, hearing this, making my pages of notes. It just feels good to hear it all.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm gonna jump in here
Yeah.
and talk to Jeremy's. I can't wait to hear what Blair has to say about alexithymia,
Oh, alexithymia.
whatever. That
Yeah.
word, the big word. The word that basically means I can't describe my feelings. And, I've worked with quite a number of people at Life Skills College who had that issue. It's a learned skill. So describing feelings is a learned behavior. And when we were talking about that, when actually Christine was chatting and sharing that she can't really do that, there's like 3 or 4 ways that I've helped people over the years find their feelings. And one of them is just quite literally doing it from a near subconscious state and going, where do you feel this situation in your body? And they start off saying, I can't, I don't. And then I go, well, if you could touch where it is in your body. And very few people take it to the second level, if you could. And that's where the subconscious kicks in. And then they point to some part in their body, usually in their chest, sometime lower down, sometime in their groin or leg or arm or shoulder or whatever. But it's usually some part of the chest, sometimes the head too, not common, but more core torso area, somewhere in there. So that's one of the things that I do to start off with. Then you can always ask Colin to send over his list of how many feeling words do you now have in there?
I haven't touched it in a while, but it was up to like 1350, I think.
Yeah, 1,350 feeling words to describing feelings. Hey, Jeremy, what?
I just wanted to reflect on, just for this moment while we're still here, the contrast between the discussion of alexithymia and how absolutely fluent Shannon is, because I felt like it was kind of expected when she spoke about how clearly she understands her life through her bodily sensations, or somaticizing, if we use that word now, that's becoming a regular part of our regular language. But Shannon is like the polar kind of expression of someone who's truly able to sensitize into her feeling world. And I picked that up from listening to her for the first time tonight for her 5 minutes that she spent describing her, I forgot, she gave you a perfect expression of one of the things you were talking about earlier. I don't remember what it was.
Mhm.
It was round or why?
Yeah, it was around
Yeah.
her why.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
I do have to say, on that note, that's not at all where I started when I met Blair, which is probably about 5 years now.
mhm.
I am everything is very think for me, and it still is. It's practice to feel. And the system of thought that we talk about and we learn here every night has made such a huge impact in my own ability to get there. Something like what I went through today would have tanked me, like utterly and completely tanked me. And I wouldn't have any idea what I would have shut down, and I wouldn't have known how to keep going. And to move through it as fast as I did. That's what the skills I feel like are so valuable at, is the magic thing that they do is help you save time
Yeah.
with things,
Totally.
and to move through really intricate situations and thought processes and things within yourself at a rate that makes life more doable. You can move through the data and move through to the other side, and what normally would be the giant pound of flesh you'd pay for it on the other side is much more reasonable. So in the space of encouraging people who might be listening on YouTube or here tonight, that it's a wonderful train to hop on and to stay on for a lifetime, because and there's still things to learn every day and every time you hop on a Tuesday. And one of the things I do notice in the very beginning, when I couldn't name and label anything, was that I always felt better after one of these nights than I did when I hopped on, even if I didn't want to come on. And it's very late where I am and I need to be sleeping, but I'm here because I always feel better when I'm done. Even if I'm just listening, it's something that'll, will kind of settle as the week goes on. And that even just that little difference that, oh, this helps. Maybe I don't know what it helps, but it's on this side of effective versus ineffective. So let's keep doing it and
Yes.
building on that. Find us a tiny little thread to tug on and then build on what works.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you, Shannon. Well said. Shane, did you want to contribute? I
Okay,
noticed that you
actually,
put
can I
your
share-
evaluation in the,
Can I just
sorry,
share a
Blair.
couple of other things here? So when you're describing feelings, so we have two things, because describing feelings is a pretty significant thing. If you can't describe feelings, it can feel debilitating sometimes. And so I just thank you for sharing your feeling word dictionary, Colin. So those of you that are in the chat, just grab it and save it so that you can go to it if you need to. The other thing that you can start doing is projecting your emotion onto others, by the way. Just do that if you can. So, and say, a pretend person, what would they feel like if they were in my shoes? What would I call that person doing their thing? So it gives sort of like a third party. It's a pretend person. It's not a real person, but it just gives you a disassociated state to talk about that person's feelings, not yours. So that's all I wanted to add. Okay.
Okay. I just wanted to, you're just going to do chat tonight. Okay. Colin, would you like to lead us in a wrap up? I think we're ready to transition to that. And Shane
Yeah,
put
that
his
time.
in the chat. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. I saw Shane put a 9 for tonight. I'm still feeling a little lost and confused sometime, working on his mini stacks. Yeah, let's jump in. Shannon, I know you said it was late for you. Would you like to start us off tonight?
Unmuting helps. All right. I appreciated talking about what I went through today in terms of going from like the why to the how and that whole conversation, and understanding some of what drives me on a deeper level. And Blair's talking about like there's some things he has to do. And at first, the language wise, because there's so much practice around, we have choices. Choices are great.
Mhm.
And taking that a little bit deeper was really meaningful to me, because there are some things I can feel that I could understand. And for me, if we're going where I feel that, it's like there's something in the pit of my stomach that it's like it has to happen. And I know it has to happen. And even as a kid, very determined around certain things. And to be able to kind of look back on some of those things and understood what formed some of my core values and some of my work ethic, and where that part of my process came from, was just really interesting to think about. the success formula was really fun to review. And I like using that in both, like as like a New Year's refresh. How do I want to look at the year in a kind of a general scope, but also in really specific small situations like my mom had Brent do with getting on tonight. So that was a fun little exercise too, because you can take it in a really fine point or you can make it an umbrella. And so that one is a fun tool to use. And I enjoyed hearing a refresher on that one for sure. So that's a 9 for me tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Brent, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Yeah, yeah. I enjoyed hopping on. I was quite sure what was going to happen with me if I was able to focus or not, and I did find it was a little more difficult to focus. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Thanks, Patty, for getting me on there and challenging me there. But I did enjoy, and if I did, one thing I'd pick up through Blair, Shannon, and Becky when they were going through their process, and then they would tell themselves they have to do something. It sounded as they're processing it through a what. They're coming through as a what question concept. Okay, what do I have to do, or what to get to where I need to do? What is it I have to do? So it's like, okay, well, I have to tell myself I have to do this. That's their process. So I did see that it wasn't coming from a why side; it was coming from a what question.
And instead of
Great
having
evaluation, Brent.
yeah,
What's that? Yeah.
Like somebody make stars or bubbles for him or something, please. I mean,
great
he
evaluation.
deserves something for that. That's really, thank
does.
you. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
That was really great, Brent. Great observation.
Yeah. But getting from the why to everybody has, like Tim has his own mini stack, and we each have mind models that we use to go through moving from the why to the what's. Blair was doing that, and Becky, they're going through their own process and using the mind models, not the same ones. We each will use ones that are effective for us, that work for us. It doesn't have to be the same exact process or a little stack that we put together, but as long as you're using them and they work, that is the point, the process of using them. So, yeah, I would definitely, I started off at like a low number, but I would move it to an 8.5 for me.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Brent.
Yeah.
Christine, would you like to share tonight?
Sure. I'm way out of practice because I was just thinking, Leslie, that I think the last time I was here, you were just coming into this. So it's been a long time since I've been around. So I don't have a lot to comment on. I certainly don't, I have nothing to add, but it was really good to hear everybody's perspectives on that. And I really appreciate it. So because I am way behind, I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay, thank you. Jeremy, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Well, I will start off by saying I have a lot of curiosity because one thing is that it's very late near me, and I felt like I was the most Eastern here, so I can't imagine where Shannon might be. And secondly, I swear that Christine was here last week, if not the week before. So the fact that she just said that she hasn't been here since Leslie started, Leslie was here since the first call I'm on. So I'm super confused in that regard.
Snagged.
As far as it goes, I guess I'm reserving this space where like I want to come to the rating authentically, and I just don't know that I'm ready to rate, but I do keep coming back here, and I keep finding myself inspired to continue this journey. And I'm actually thinking about maybe going back into the YouTube and making it to the front of the playlist and just listening to some of the first ones, maybe to kind of like see how this community evolved. And I like to do that. Like I like to start with podcasts at the very first one to find out who those people were way back when they started, and then like watch them evolve. So we'll see what happens with that. And by the way, I'm in Manhattan, New York City, as Shannon has asked me in the chat.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm
thank you
actually
for.
apparently later than she is, but that's
Oh,
okay. Sorry, Colin. Go ahead.
no, you're good. Yeah, I'm in Eastern time too. Um, well, yeah, thank you for being here, Jeremy. It's been cool to have you be part of this group too.
Yep.
Jackie, is Jackie still on? I haven't seen
No.
her.
No,
Okay, her
she's
power
having
went out.
power
Yeah,
issues
Yeah.
tonight.
bummer. Leslie, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Of course, and thank you. I like my 9s. Tonight was, again, as I said, quite informative. I was able to follow it. Learned a new word tonight, alexithymia. Yeah, that's and I guess after just thinking through here, Blair's helped me to cure some of that in me over the time on our sessions. So thank you for everyone in participating in it tonight, and it was great.
Thank you. I'll jump in. What worked for me tonight? Patty, you were on it. You were on it. So I just had so much fun watching, especially the interaction with Blair when you were kind of coaching him. That was fun. But your timing and jumping in and everything, to me seemed highly effective. So
Thank
that
you.
worked for me. I would give it a 9 tonight.
Super cool.
Tim, would you like to participate in the wrap up?
For sure. Wow, a lot of amazing nuggets tonight. I loved the conversation, and I just want to start up by saying, Shannon, thank you for sharing tonight your process. It was so neat hearing you talk through that process, and then moving from your process to later hearing about Blair talk about his have tos, and then sitting here going, oh my gosh, with Becky, like just tying those dots together was a lot of fun tonight. And that really worked for me. And thinking about now, this is more of a why to and obviously there's some what's in there, but this is like a why to a how, and that behavior of just getting into action and then the evaluation that comes after is highly effective. So I loved that conversation piece tonight. And then wanted to mention, Brent, congrats on your dough. And then the other thing that really worked for me tonight was listening to Jeremy. Just you bring so much amazing insight. Just listening to you, the way you process through, as I mentioned earlier, your language pattern and stuff is very effective. So just wanted to shout you out and say thank you. You really are effective, sir. And it was a 9.5 for me.
Thanks, Tim. Becky, would you like to share tonight?
I would love to share, but Tim's shared all my stuff. No, just no. I love Tuesday nights. I've felt many times, especially when we first started with this, similarly, like, right? Do I have the capacity? Do I have the capacity to sit on the computer for 90 minutes and have an experience that likely is going to challenge me, that is likely going to, a lot of different things. But to the point that's been shared by several of you, I am a better person for myself and for those in my world when I tap into things that are effective and talking about how to think and understanding the function. And Blair, I love that you brought that up today, the function of the words that we use, the function of the concepts that we use, and how we can be intentional with them is a very, very powerful thing. So Shannon, I loved your little thing, right? This little guy, left shoulder, right shoulder thing was beautiful. Jeremy, I appreciate your authenticity and your willingness to risk in an environment that is new. We appreciate that and learn so very much from what you bring, your flavor and your vibe. So thank you so much for that. Christine, I love the way your brain works. I love it when you pop on because I know that I'm going to glean things that that are unique to the way you present it. And that's what this group is all about, is individuals sharing their perspectives, their experience with their learning. And I learned, Patty's mentioned this before, and I'll double down on it. I learn just as much from wrap up as I do from what we talk about because of everyone else's perspective and perceptions
Yeah.
on what the topic is. So 9.5 for me tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Becky. Patty, would you like to share tonight?
Yes, I would. I'm glad you brought that up about learning from wrap up because I do. I sit here and I take notes on things people say in wrap up because my learning process is about writing. So I'm, see my head down periodically and I'll be writing things. So it helps cement them in my brain. I really, one of the strongest things for me tonight was just shifting the word from definition to function. Blair, that insert that you had in terms of looking at the function of words. I love word meanings. I'm a word nerd, and but thinking about words in terms of function, that opened up a whole new space in my brain. So I really valued that. The other was I really appreciated Shannon, your contribution on have tos being related to that deep part of who you are, which makes it a non-negotiable. Basically, you're looking at have tos as a non-negotiable,
Well, you have to have
not like something is being forced on you, but it's a non-negotiable.
You just made me have another thought, because you're my mom, I know you're okay with this, but it's alignment with self. Like,
Yes.
if you don't, like, it's hard to live in your own skin when you don't have alignment with yourself. And
Yeah.
so those
Yes.
have-tos become an alignment issue for your own, like, ability to stay sane. So
Yeah.
sorry, I don't go around interrupting people during wrap up unless I'm related to them.
Yes, I know where you live. Anyway,
But that little bunny had something to say, and I'm working on my bunnies.
yes. Anyway, so looking at that concept of have to from a different point of view was very effective for me tonight as well. I give it a 9.5 tonight. Blair?
Well, wow. Good night, big night. Jeremy, your number is your number, and if there is no number and you're not comfortable with it, that's completely okay too. So, and it's always what I tell people, generally coaches that I train, when we do the numbering, is to get a relative position in our life of something that's important. And so, like Leslie, I'm going to use you as an example. You don't always, but you almost always use 9. I think you've given one like 8.5 and one 10, but it's been 9s. And you're very begrudgingly giving the 10 because nothing's a 10 in your mind, but you did do 1, and that blew my mind. But that's your evaluation of you. That's your vision of what you got. You got full value for it. And 9s generally, to me, from you, Leslie, are full value. And then beyond full value is your 10 or something like that. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I am. So anyway, if you want to correct me, I will stand corrected. So, no, okay.
No, it's all good, Blair.
Okay, that's all.
All good.
Thank you. So I like having, back in the day, I realized that people, when they can quantify something, put a number on it, it adds a certain reality to their brain. And when they don't, that's okay too. It's not that the reality is not there, it's just that it is a different perspective of that whole thing. So it's not against whatever. It is, what did I get out of tonight for me and my acquisition? What was the value, the perceived value for me? And that's all that the numbering system is about. To me, I enjoyed tonight a lot. Shannon, I really enjoyed your story. Becky, I enjoyed yours as well. I really liked how you guys connected with the have to, because to me, the have to piece in my mind, choice can be a great thing and a debilitating thing. And I've taught myself how to have choice, like make real choices in my life. And that's great. But when I have the desire to escape from what I need to do, I can do that with choice, which is not always the healthiest. And so I have to eliminate choices by giving myself one choice. And that one choice is I have to do this. And that is a extraordinarily powerful choice at that point. It's like the absolute choice of choices, because that have to is so core to me. Yeah, that's right. It's part of your core self. You're right. And when I don't make that choice, or if I try to make that choice and I don't do it, I know I'm letting myself down. I know I will disappoint myself. And I had that clearly present on my call with Dr. K when he shared his disappointment with himself some time ago, like years ago, but he did it and he shared that. And I go, I don't want that feeling again. And that was huge. So that helped me solidify my drive to keep working at figuring out how to make this thing work and get it done. And then the joy, the absolute elation of pushing the button, seeing all the transcript go down, and then hitting the down arrow to catch up with where ChatGPT was now typing out a proposal based on a transcript, and starting to read it through and going, oh my God, close, not spot on, but close. And I go, close enough, great mud. And now I have a computer that will help me throw mud up against the wall so I can modify it and work it. And that was just amazing. So I feel relieved by, thrilled by technology around this, by the way. So anyway, so it's been huge. It's been a huge day for me breaking through that. I'm also exercising more consistently again. This is going to be my sort of second week of being able to work out a half an hour a day because of my previous illness. I wasn't able to, and I didn't do it consistently yet, and I didn't do it over the weekend. I'm taking weekends off, and that's okay. But I'm noticing physical changes in my body where I can walk somewhat more comfortably in spite of my hips degenerating, which I thought would be the case, and it is. So that's huge. But I don't have the I don't know quite how to frame this delicately. I don't have the I don't have the asshole problems, okay, that I had. I don't know how to say it delicately. I just can't find words. So I had radiation proctitis, which gave me problems down below because I had prostate cancer, which bounced me out of reasonable health Jeremy, for about a year. So I am getting back, and I am loving myself because of that. So I got my spare bedroom done, and I got pegboards up on the wall to hang my tools in my spare bedroom.
So no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, exactly.
The same.
No ifs, ands, or buts. Yep, you got it. So that's my thing. Well done, guys. Really well done. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. We have the notes here. The guide, the BDE Insider Notes are a treasure trove of information, and it is highly effective. So you can get definitions, you can get notes, you can get the mind models are listed out in those insider notes, by the way, with sort of a glossary of terms from here. So if you're looking to catch up differently, Jeremy, that might be something that you want. If not, go back and take a look at historical videos that are there. When people join to get into the BDE Insider Note and get that, they get all the history that's in there, which is only 4 or 5 right now since we started on 3/17. So, which is the start of this series. But this entire series is being covered off in the BDE notes as we go through it. And it will just be for the entire year. So 52 editions. Anyway, that's it. That's all. Thank you. Oh, yeah, no, one other thing. Shout out to Patty.
Huh?
And the shout out is to Patty. Her timing has been impeccable, as I have been saying, and as Colin had
thank
noticed,
you.
and I thought it was like spot on as well. And
Thank
your comfort, and I was just reflecting back on when you started in with this stuff, you were, pardon me for saying this, it's true, but your stress was palpable, like, and concern, it was palpable, like right there, like you were very stressed.
Yes.
And
It was an
now
uncomfortable place to be.
you do not look uncomfortable at all, just the opposite. You have
Thank
come
you.
so far. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Yep. You're very gracious. I like that about you. Thank you. So guys, with that said, I wish you well, and we shall see you. I believe we're going to be doing, Patty, are we continuing on with part 2?
I think we'll continue on with this. There's a lot more to mine on this topic. So thumbs up for people going one more week with us. Yes, going, gone. Thank
That's
you.
everybody.
I do think that, yes, I do think we'll go another week on this topic. So
Super. Okay. Yeah, because we barely touched. Well, we've barely touched it all. Okay, with that, guys, have a great night. I shall see you next week. Take care.
Yeah.